Well, today I'm going to show you how to match a piece of crown molding on the table saw. This is a piece that I literally need 2 feet of it on a job, and I can't buy locally this particular piece of molding to match it. And like I said, I only need 2 feet. So I'm going to show you how to make this molding on the table saw. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this blade and literally, as you can see, this cove is not really that much. So what I want to do is I want to put that in there and lower the blade until that molding sits flat, not sitting on the blade. Boy, it's not much. And then what you want to do is you want to take this thing and you want to turn it. That's still a little high. Because this is so small, this piece is warped. It's not letting me lay it down flat. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to lay this on here, and I may have to take a practice piece on this one because this warp piece is not allowing it to lay flat. But what I want that to do is I want to go through there on an angle with the fence, and that should cut that concave out. So I'm going to clamp that down, and I'm just going to run a piece of scrap in there and see if that comes close to what I'm looking at there. It's hard to tell, the blade is down so far, but I'm gonna give it a shot. All right, let me run a scrap through there and see if it's close. You can see the cove. But like I said, there's not much of a cove here. It's pretty close though. I think we can go with that. So this is the piece I want to use. So you can see that this cove is pretty close. The rest I'll get with sanding, but I can't go any deeper than that, so I'm thinking that'll work. Now we have a second cove here. So what I've got to do is I've got to set this cove up so that I'm running this side through there. A more defined piece of cove actually works easier than this, but this is what I need to match, so this is what I got to do. So again, I'm going to lay this thing on an angle. I wish that piece wasn't bent like that. And what I'm doing is I'm lining up the teeth with that, either side of that cove. So I'll put this. Now again, I'm not going to use it on the good piece, I'm going to put it on this scrap. And that should cut that cove. Now what I got is I got the two coves. Which they line up like that. Now I've got to make the rest of the cuts, and the first thing I'll do is I'll now rip this thing down to the width I want, which is the width of this. Now I can just rip it straight down. Now's when you got to be careful, because your blade is suddenly cutting through this wood, and got to remember that. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to cut these two angles. So I'll just lay this on the table saw and I'll bring the blade over until it's the right angle. And this cut's also a 45. Now we need to do the same thing with the other side of the molding. They happen to be 45s as well, so I want to run this through like this. Now I've got the basic shape of it, but what I have to do is I have to make this cut coming in from either side. Then the rest is sanding. All right, so what we have here is I got this pushed up against the fence, which is a 45 on that cut, and then this saw at a 90 will give me that cut I need, so that's actually pretty good. Then the only thing I got to do is get this cut here, so I've got to run that thing through there. At a 45, I'm gonna hold this board like this against the fence and let that come in and cut that. I'm gonna try a little bit and see what happens. You got to get creative at how you use this. You got to be careful when you're doing it. So what I'm doing is I'm making this cut right here by holding this thing on the 45 against the fence and pushing it through. And I've already made this cut, so then it'll give me that cut. So now I need to sand this. I need to round this part and get this cleaned up here, and get this cleaned up in here and round this part, and I should have it. So let me do that. Let me get a sander and do that. This cut's not square, but you can see that that pretty much matches that molding right there. It's close enough that up in the air, that's going to look just fine. This is a tough piece of molding because there's not a lot of profile to it, so it's hard to get everything just right. But as you can see, I can put that up on that wall, and it's going to match pretty close. Close enough when I caulk it in everything, it'll be just fine. But that's the idea of how to do that. And of course that molding will sit like that on the wall, and that's what you'll see. If you were doing that with a lot of molding, I only needed 2 feet. But if you're doing that with a lot of molding, what you would want to do is every time you set the saw, you want to pass all the boards through it at once. So that you just, if you're doing 10 boards, pass them all through, change the saw, pass them all through. But as you can see, that'll be just fine for matching that molding up on a second story of a house sitting up there that I just need to fix a little bit. So there you have it. The lake is getting a little weedy. The lakes around here in New York State, they're getting overrun with some sort of algae. It's terrible this year. I've never seen it like this before. It's really not good because I'm trying to sell my house and they come out here and look at this and it's like, this is terrible. What I'm going to do is tomorrow I'll take that piece of molding into the job and I'll install it and show you what it looks like when it's installed. So I'll do that tomorrow. There we have the finished piece installed on the house. Turned out pretty good. From down on the lower floor you can't tell at all. So there you have it.